I assure you, has ever stepped anywhere near England until as he goes to England. And what does he do in England? Well, he has a coat of arms made for himself, which has dolphins on it. These dolphins with water background and dolphins on blue. And my family's coat of arms are people hiding in the shtetl from the Cossacks trying to kill them. But we all sort of desire this genealogy, yet we reject it at the same time. We reject the histories we desire. And we really don't trust the historians. You know, we look at this guy, and on the one hand, yeah, we watch him on the History Channel, we watch him on BBC. But somehow he seems tired and effete. You know, I keep thinking of the third Indiana Jones movie, the last good one. And Harrison Ford speaking of his father, Professor Henry Jones Sr., as the man who studies the Middle Ages, the one that students want to avoid. You know, there's something about this. It's tired, it's old, it's dead white people. I think of Henrik Ibsen's Hedda Gabler. Hedda Gabler is about this woman who's trying to realize herself during the late 19th century. And she's married to a man who she abhors. Her husband, Jorgen Tessman. And she abhors him. But why does she abhor him? Well, for instance, because he's a historian. He's an antiquarian. On their honeymoon, he goes in searching for antiquities instead of, well, staying in bed with his wife. He would rather be in libraries than home keeping his wife satisfied. So Hedda stays at home and practices with her pistols. She'll use them by the end of the play. And thinks of another man. Thinks of Eilert Lovborg. Ooh, this romantic writer. Well, while her husband's looking around for old books in smelly dead places, libraries, antique shops. So we don't really trust those who talk about the past, who talk about history. They seem stale and dead and effete. But I came here today to tell you why I do care. I don't care for the same reason as the great literary scholar Stephen Greenblatt, who begins his wondrous work, Shakespearean Negotiations, with a quotation, "I began with the desire to speak with the dead." I mean, I remember the first time reading that. I began with the desire to speak with the dead. And the first time I read it, I thought, my God, that's brilliant and beautiful. And the second time I read it, I thought it was just a trifle twisted and morbid. Began with the desire to speak with the dead. I really have no desire to speak with the dead. I don't have that. That's not what drives me. And truth be told, I rather relish the presentist bias that I can live under. You know, the fact that I'm the first person in my family to have gone to college. That I'm not stuck living the same way my forebears did 900 years ago, because they were not dukes, I assure you. So, why do I care about this stuff? Why do I care about history? Well, I'm going to read a couple of passages to you, and they're long passages, but I'll try and do my best reading them to you. And they're from two very different sources. The first one, is from James Baldwin's Sonny's Blues. And let me tell you a little bit about the background of what's going on here. The narrator of Sonny's Blues, who's not the hero of Sonny's Blues, but the narrator of Sonny's Blues, is a teacher. And he's not a particularly good one, and he knows that. He teaches mathematics. He teaches in the inner city. He teaches in Harlem. And he's really not very good. He's out of touch with his students. And he's becoming more and more out of touch with his students as the plague of heroin echoes around Harlem. And his students are falling prey to this plague. And he realizes that he is not in touch with his students. But he doesn't really know how to get closer either. His brother Sonny has been in jail, arrested for selling heroin, for using and selling heroin. His brother Sonny is a musician. And he's about to come out of jail when the short story starts. Our narrator has had a life in which he has always done the right thing. He has been, to put it bluntly, a very, very, very good boy. He has served in the military. He has married. He has had several children, one of whom has died of polio. He talks about the pain of that his child suffered and that the family suffered. He has taken care of his mother until she died. He has always done right. And in many ways, the story echoes the story of the prodigal son. There's the one son who stayed home and did the right thing, and the other son who didn't do so right, who went out, made some mistakes. But Sonny has come back, and he's trying to get his life together. He's trying to do right by himself and by his family. He's living with his brother. He's trying to stay straight, though he's not sure he can. And he talks about how so many of his friends, and indeed so many jazz musicians of that period, the late 1950s, so many of his friends use heroin to deal with the pain, he says. His brother doesn't understand this. What pain? What kind of pain? Can't you just forget about the pain? And at the end of the story, Sonny invites his brother to the village, the Greenwich Village, to hear him and his band play piano, to hear him play piano with his band. And his brother has some reluctance, but he understands how fragile Sonny is, so he agrees to go. And I'm going to read to you the end of this short story, which frankly always chokes me up a bit, and I hope I don't get too silly in front of you. We went to the only nightclub on a short, dark street downtown. We squeezed through the narrow, chattering, jam-packed bar to the entrance of a big room where the bandstand was, and we stood there for a moment, for the lights were very dim in this room and we couldn't see. Then, "Hello, boy!" said the voice, and an enormous black man, much older than Sonny and myself, erupted out of all that atmospheric lighting and put an arm around Sonny's shoulder. "I've been sitting right here," he said, "waiting for you." He had a big voice, too, and heads in the darkness turned to us. Sonny grinned and pulled away a little and said, "Creole, this is my brother. I told you about him." Creole took my hand. "I'm glad to meet you, son," he said, and it was clear that he was glad to meet me, there, for Sonny's sake. And he smiled. "You got a real musician in your family." And he took his arm from Sonny's shoulders and he slapped him lightly, affectionately on the back of his hand. "Well, now I've heard it all," said a voice behind us. This was another musician and a friend of Sonny's, a coal-black, cheerful-looking man, built close to the ground. He immediately began confiding to me, at the top of his lungs, the most terrible things about Sonny, his teeth gleaming like a lighthouse and his laugh coming up from him like the beginning of an earthquake. And it turned out that everyone at the bar knew Sonny, or almost everyone. Some were musicians, working there or nearby, or not working. Some were simply hangers-on, and some were there to hear Sonny play. I was introduced to all of them, and they were very polite to me. Yet it was clear that, for them, I was only Sonny's brother. Here I was in Sonny's